So starting once again from chapter 7, let's as we read this chapter is extremely important to understand the significance of Melchizedek, to also understand why is the author of Hebrews trying to spend so much time on Melchizedek. Because Melchizedek is just a small mention in the book of Genesis. We might just skip Melchizedek. Many Christians may not even have heard the name Melchizedek. But there is a huge thing because Melchizedek was the foreshadow of things that will come. He was like a shadow. He was going to be the kind of an trailer, as you may say, of a movie which is not complete but gives you an idea, something like that, about the coming of Jesus Christ. He says, "For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him." So the slaughter of the kings were the kings that were slaughtered when Abraham would go and save his brother, his nephew Lot, after he goes and resides in the land of Sodom and Gomorrah, to whom also Abraham gave a tenth of all. This is the first time the concept of tenth is being mentioned. Before that, Abraham doesn't give. Nobody in the Bible gives. But the Spirit of God would make Abraham want to give tenth of all that he had got. And it also means that Melchizedek is meant as the king of righteousness. And then also king of Salem means the king of peace. Nobody knows his father. It's not mentioned in the Bible. Nobody knows who his mother was. Nobody knows his genealogy. Having neither beginning of days or end of life, but made like the Son of God, remains a priest continually. So Melchizedek was a kind of priest that would not be seen ever after that. He says, "Now consider how great this man was, to whom even the patriarch Abraham," and who was Abraham? It says Abraham was the father of Israel. Okay. And now this Abraham is called the father because Abraham would have one son, Isaac. Isaac would have two sons, Jacob and Esau. Jacob would be called Israel. He said, "No longer will your name be called Jacob, but you would be Israel." Now, Israel, that is Jacob, would have 12 sons who will become the 12 tribes of Israel. So, obviously, Abraham was the father of Israel, okay? And he says, "Now consider how great this man was, to whom even the father figure, patriarch Abraham, gave a tenth of the spoils, and indeed those who are sons of Levi, who receive the priesthood, have a commandment to receive tithes from the people according to the law, that is from their brethren, though they had come from the loins of Abraham." Nobody understand what he's saying. Finally, the high priest would come from the tribe of Aaron, who would be the tribe of Levi. Now, considering the fact that finally it is from the body of Abraham, you know that the genetic coding would come from the sperm of Abraham. That's what he's trying to say. So this would finally get translated, and go on for generation. So we must understand that the genetic material that composed all the Levites were already in Abraham, and thus they were in Abraham even when Abraham gave tithes to Melchizedek. Can you understand? So he's trying to make us understand how great was Melchizedek that Abraham himself would honor him, right? So it goes on to say, so that's what it says, that uh, uh, but he whose genealogy is not derived from them receives tithes from Abraham and blessed him who had the promise. Now, beyond all contradiction, the lesser is blessed by the better. So, who blesses Abraham? Melchizedek blesses Abraham. Always blessing is given from the greater to the lesser. Here mortal men receive tithes, but there he receives them of whom it is witnessed he lives. Even Levi, who received tithes, paid tithes through Abraham, so to speak, for he is still in the loins of his father when Melchizedek met him. So, what is he telling? It's technically, it is like the Levites who received tithes when they were made in the order of the priest had already given tithes to Melchizedek because Abraham gave tithes, and genetically speaking, within the body of Abraham, the Levites were already existing because everything that happened after that was from the genetic makeup, from the chromosomes of Abraham. So it's very interesting. Have you thought that? This 2000 years before, they could clearly understand the concept of transmission of genetic material. Without science, they could understand clearly that every genetic material was basically encrypted and all of it was coming from the spermatozoa of Abraham itself. Biology that we understand today was understood so clearly to know it was not a new set of chromosomes being developed. It was the same thing being mirrored and replicated that would go on. In other words, they're saying the Levites also gave tithes to Melchizedek, and Abraham was blessed by Melchizedek, so Melchizedek was even greater than Abraham. Okay, then let's come to the next verses. Therefore, if perfection were through the Levitical priesthood, because after all, they were the ones who were praying for them, interceding for them, and doing all the ceremonies. What further need was there for another priest? And why should he arise from the order of Melchizedek and not called according to the order of Aaron? Jesus, if he was going to be a high priest, should have come out as a Levite. He should have come out from the tribe of Aaron, but he was from the tribe of Judah. He was not from the time of Aaron, and that is why the Bible would tell in the book of Psalms, much before Jesus was born, that he was from the order of Melchizedek. For it's evident that a Lord arose from Judah, from which tribe Moses spoke nothing concerning priesthood, and it is far more evident in the likeness of Melchizedek, there arises another priest who has come not according to the law of fleshly commandment, but according to the power of endless life. For he testified, you are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. This is Psalm 110. No? For on one hand, there is an annulling of the former commandment because of its weakness and unprofitableness, for the law made nothing perfect. On the other hand, there is a bringing of a better hope through which we draw near to God. Can I make you understand? Yes, there's the Levites, but that was not the perfect high priest. And the Bible, the book of Hebrews, will make us understand why it was not a great priesthood. And Jesus had to come from an order of a greater priesthood whose beginning was not known, whose end was not known, whom even Abraham would worship. Abraham would never worship the Levites because he was the father of the Levites. But Abraham worshipped Melchizedek because he was the priest of the Most High God. And it says, as he was not made priest without an oath, okay, for they have become priests without an oath, for he with an oath by him who said to him, the Lord has sown and will not relent. You are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. By so much more, Jesus has become a surety of a better commandment. And there were many priests because they were prevented by death from continuing. No. So there were many priests, but they would die and they would die and they would die. Because if there's one priest who could live eternally, we needed only one priest, right? But he became, because he continues forever as an unchangeable priesthood. So, what the author of Hebrews is saying, maybe you thought that Judaism is great. Maybe you thought forgiveness is there through the priest, but remember, each of these priests would die. And with the coming, they would die. And so we needed new priest, a new priest, a new high priest. Year after year, the priests were changing. But with the coming of Jesus, this comes to an end because for the first time, we had a priest that was everlasting, who had conquered death and was seated right in the right hand of God, interceding for us. He says, because he continues forever as an unchanging priesthood. Therefore, he is able to save to the uttermost those who come to God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for them. Amazing. He is interceding for us 24/7. 24/7, there is somebody interceding and interceding for each of us. For such a high priest was fitting for us, who is holy, harmless, undefiled, separate from sinners, and has become higher than the heavens, who does not need daily, as those high priests, to offer up sacrifices, first for his own sins and then for the people's. So, whenever the high priest would first come, first he would pray for his own sins. Lord, forgive me. Lord, cleanse me. Only then he would have the boldness to even enter. But this new high priest was different. He would not die. He was pure. He was sinless. He was tempted just like us, yet without sin. And because of that, he never had to go and plead guilty every time he prayed for us. Can you understand that? And it says, for this he did once for all when he offered up himself. For the law appoints as high priest men who are weakness, but the word of the oath that comes from the law appoint the Son who has been perfected forever. What is the author of Hebrews trying to tell the people? Do you understand? You cannot even compare the high priest that you want to use as your intercessor with Jesus Christ. He is a Levite from the order of the Levite who is far lower than Melchizedek, and Jesus comes from the order of the Melchizedek whose beginning and end is not known. But he is even greater than Melchizedek because he would die sinless and come back to life again. And today he's raised up and is seated on the right hand of the Father and is interceding for us forever. And he, being sinless, doesn't have to keep offering this sacrifice more and more. As we go forward into the book of Hebrews, we will understand in great detail as to why any ceremony that was held in the Old Testament should never be practiced in the New Testament. So they were shadows, and the perfect is come, right? And from now, we'll go to the PowerPoint presentation to understand this in greater. Now, look at this picture. This was the first car that Henry Ford had made more than 100 years ago. So it was a great car at that time. People are very impressed because this is actually taking them from one place to another, very slow, very noisy, but it was fantastic. And they were all very excited. Now, years down the line, you got a car like this. This is a state-of-the-art car. It's got automatic lights, automatic gears, battery operated. I mean, it's got everything that you can dream for. Now, if you still want to hold back to that old car, what will people talk about you? A stubborn fool. It's only a fool who would say, no, I don't believe in this car. This car cannot do anything for me. I still prefer the old car that Henry Ford had made 120 years ago. And that is exactly what happens to any of us who like to keep the Old Testament. The Old Testament commands. I'll come to in great detail. Many people think you're wonderful. They divide the church, the Holy of Holies inside. Hey, that was removed by Jesus Christ. No longer Holy of Holies. When the curtain tore, there was no more high priest necessary on the earth. There are many churches, there's a curtain. The curtain will split open, and the other side, the king will be, the pastor will be there. And they say, this is holy place. You cannot enter. It's only for the pastor, right? It's not biblical. In the New Testament church, there is nothing like that. Some people may get upset when I tell it's sad if you keep the Sabbath in the New Testament. The Sabbath ended with the resurrection of Jesus Christ. With Jesus, we got into perfect rest. So, Sabbath is a 7-day ceremony for us, not limited to one day. And we'll understand in greater detail. Actually, if you look in the book of Galatians, he will actually tell if you want to keep one law, then you better keep all the laws. If you want to keep the Sabbath, keep everything today because the law is written in our hearts. You cannot go back to that anymore because it's finished. They don't manufacture those cars anymore because it's finished. They cease to exist. You will not go and say, something, I've come to buy that. I think it was the Model T or something that was Ford's first car. I came to buy that car. He said, sir, there's something wrong with you. We stopped manufacturing that long ago. That is a foreshadow of the perfect car. Today we got something absolutely perfect right here. And you should be thinking about this, not that. And that is exactly the problem that is happening with people who want to go back. Hebrews chapter 7, verse 18 and 19. For on the one hand, former commandments are made void because of its weakness and the lack of profit. You understand that? That these Old Testament commandments were made void because they cease to exist. Where they say the curse will continue to your son and their sons cease to exist with the coming of the law. The sacrifices in the temple cease to exist because now you got a perfect high priest who sacrificed himself. You still can't be sacrificing anymore. You cannot be keeping those ceremonies anymore. And you cannot even be dressing up like those priests anymore because they don't exist. The New Testament covenant is totally different. For the law made nothing perfect. On the other hand, we have a better hope through which we draw near to him. The law showed one thing: this is the standard of God. The law showed one thing: it's impossible to meet that standard. And you need somebody who can bring you out from the hopelessness of the law. And that's where Paul will say, who can bring me out from this state? The more I want to do good, the more I sin. Oh, who can bring me out? I am cursed. And then he talks about the freedom that is there in Jesus Christ. Then he tries to make us understand about Melchizedek being greater than Abraham, because they said, how can Jesus be greater than even Melchizedek? Abraham gave a tenth part of all, being translated king of righteousness, and then also king of Salem, being king of peace. Abraham gave tenth. Why did Abraham give tenth? The Spirit of God spoke to him and said, this is somebody who's greater than you. Genesis chapter 4 and 18. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, bought out bread and wine, and he was a priest of the Most High God. How astounding! Years later, the bread was going to be the body of Jesus Christ. Years later, the wine was going to be the blood of Jesus Christ, the symbol of the new covenant. And here comes this man out of nowhere, not from the tribe of the Levites, not even a Jew, who comes and tells you. And in verse 14, 19, and he blessed him and said, blessed be Abraham of God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. So he was greater than Abraham. And this is what the author of Hebrews is saying, that Melchizedek was greater than Abraham. Psalms 110 verse 4, the Lord has sown and will not relent. You are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. He's talking about Jesus Christ. Hebrews 7:18 says, for on the one hand, there is annulling of the former commandment because of his weakness and unprofitableness. 19, for the law made nothing perfect. On the other hand, there is the bringing in of a better hope through which we draw near to God. You cannot hold on to something which is old when something better comes. You had a hut. Then God gives you a wonderful house. Do you hold on to the hut and say, no, I want to live there? Why? No, it is the first thing, and I cannot let go of it. It doesn't make any sense at all. Whether you got a better medication for a disease, or whether you got, like I said, a better car, or a better high priest, whom would you hold on to? What is the greatness of the new high priest? He continues forever because he came back to life again and is seated on the right hand of God. He always lives to make intercession for us. How amazing is that? The high priest in the Old Testament would intercede once a year. Here is a high priest who's interceding at all times. Therefore, he's able to save to the worst sinner who comes to God through him. Anytime there is somebody interceding for you, the day you receive Jesus Christ and make him your Lord and King. What is the greatness of the new priest? He's harmless, he's undefiled, separate from sinners, seated higher than the heavens, who does not need daily to offer sacrifice. He did once for all when he offered up himself. He offered up himself. How beautiful can this be? And when you got something as beautiful as that, why would you want to go back to the old system? Because the perfect removes forever the imperfect. For the law appoints as high priest men who have weakness. But the word of the oath, which came from the law, appoints a son who has been perfected forever. This was a caterpillar, ugly, dirty, living on, you know, the leaves. It would finally become into a cocoon, buried in a tomb, would come back to life again, glorious. What would you choose? This glorious product or the caterpillar? Unfortunately, many people, although they say are believers, live in that past, live in traditions, live on things that are not in the word of scriptures, continue to go to the Old Testament and think it's wonderful before they're keeping so many Old Testament commandments and getting excited over it, not understanding the fact when you do that, you're actually telling, I'm living in a zone which is no longer new. So first was Melchizedek, the greatest. Then came the high priest of Israel. And finally came the high priest who would make a sacrifice. Melchizedek came with bread and wine. The high priest would offer animal sacrifices. Jesus offered himself. He has disappeared and he has disappeared. And what lives on forever is Jesus Christ, the perfect sacrifice. Tonight, I want you to think about this fact. This is the gift of God, perfect high priest. As we go into chapter 8 and as we understand more into the next few chapters, we will understand clearly it is foolishness and one of the greatest mistakes to start taking in Old Testaments and saying, the Sabbath is great. We should maintain the Sabbath. There are great blessings in the Sabbath. No, it's all over. With the coming of Jesus, God, he says, you are the Lord of the Sabbath. We are in perfect rest the day we come into Christ. He tells, come unto me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And I will give you peace. And this rest will continue on to eternity. Because in Jesus, every law was annulled. And he gave a new law. He said, now I'll write my law in your heart. That is much greater than the Old Testament law. The Old Testament is a shadow. It makes us understand very clearly this is the expectation of the Lord. It said, thou shalt not kill. And Jesus said, what I'm going to write in your heart is even bigger. You shall not get angry with anybody. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Jesus, I'm going to write something even greater. You will not think sinfully in your. It goes on to say that it is impossible to live with this law. But what is impossible for man is possible with God. Tonight, as we have been building, Jesus is not an angel. He's much higher than the angel. Jesus is much higher than Abraham. Jesus much higher than any prophet. Jesus is much higher than any high priest. Jesus is much higher than Melchizedek. He is the perfect high priest who died for you and me, rise up to life again, seated on the right hand of God as he worships God. We're going to keep on understanding more of the foreshadow, how the temple was created, what was happening, and when the perfect comes, they cease to exist. I hope you're understanding a little more about this book, which people say is very complicated, which brings about the glory of God in great detail. The book was written to tell people, please don't give back and go back into something that is absolutely useless after the coming of the Lord. Isn't it? For example, they're building a fantastic highway. For some time, they'll put a detour. Go through that. Go through the detour because that's the only way to reach the other side. But when the new road has come, will you still go through the detour? Only a fool will go through that, right? Yes, it was necessary at one time because there's nothing better than that. But with the coming of the perfect, the imperfect moves away. I hope that God's been speaking to you, trying to make you understand the details of this wonderful book, and that is chapter 7. Always remember chapter 7 of that old car and the new car. 7, the perfect number. Chapter 7 talks about the perfect high priest that comes and came to be an everlasting high priest for all of us.